Before we get going, I just want to put a disclaimer out there that today's topic will involve depression as well as suicide. And that being said, so we want to put that disclaimer in there for our viewers who are sensitive to these topics, and know that if you are someone who does or needs help, please reach out to someone you care and trust, and someone that you feel you can talk to. And with further ado, let's start the podcast.
Hi guys, I'm Christina.
And I'm Matt.
And this is New Ways Podcast. Today our topic of conversation is going to be stress. Big topic.
Yes.
But before we get going, do you have anything you want to vent about, let go, talk about?
I will, I mean, we could talk about what we did yesterday.
Oh yeah, no.
We went to Pride.
Yeah, we
West
went to
Hollywood.
Pride.
That was actually a lot of fun.
That was a blast. Yeah. And
good.
I know you specifically wanted to just mention, so she was so cute. So I got hit on. I am straight. I do like men. And I got hit on at Pride. Of course, I mean, it's Pride, of course, by a girl. And she was just the sweetest thing on earth. She really was. She comes up to me very politely and asks, "Are you with anybody here?" And of course, my oblivious self over here is like, "Yeah, I'm with a lot of people." But then after that, she walked away and she came back. She's just like, "I'm sorry if I offended you." I'm like, "No, not at all." And then she was so sweet. She introduced me to her sister. And she was like, "I'm normally so shy." And I'm like, "Well, good for you. Definitely, shoot your shot. It's worth a shot. Yes. Yeah. If I wasn't that, you're adorable. Love you. Have a great day." But then, yeah, it was adorable. And you're like, "You can talk to them, Christina." I'm like, "I know." It's just when I'm out, since I don't go out that often, if we're in a loud area, I'm like, I'm not one who's going to scream over you and try to have any type of intellectual conversation, because I kind of already don't think it's going to happen.
No, agreed.
But yeah, no, it was really heartwarming. She was so sweet. And that was fun.
Absolutely.
It was fun.
I think it was an absolute blast when we were there, because we were there with a group of people that we actually really enjoyed.
Yeah, for sure.
Loved each and every one of them. And so that was also a big thing for me, is being with a good group of people, going to kind of the more sort of high intensity, sort of loud music and vibes. But it really, really highlighted the importance for me of recognizing that you have to go to those things with people that you trust and people that you care about. And I think that was really important, especially too, even, you brought up, the instance where, you got hit on and actually really enjoyed it. Oftentimes,
so
it was amazing, and I think it was so kind, and she was so lovely.
Yeah,
I remember as I was standing next to you.
Yeah.
And she was just an absolute treasure to talk to, just that little bit that we did. But I think it also really kind of brings up a good point too, of when I'm not someone who gets hit on a ton. If I do, I know, but just, maybe I do. I just, but when it happens, I'm like, "Thank you." And it's just then it's just try to, sort of change conversation topics. It's not in my forte to be hit on or anything. So when it does happen, I'm just okay, thanks. Awesome. I'm not quite used to that. So that's, so it's just always very different. That's why I'm like, oh wait, I can talk to people. It's funny. I told you that I literally was telling myself that in a way too. I was like, wait, you're more than welcome to
talk to anybody.
Anyone there, and everything and stuff. And so I think that's always just a really cool thing for be able to do and see. And yeah, it was just a lot of fun. We had a great time. Went for 3 hours?
Oh, a few hours.
Yeah, we went for 2-3 hours, and we're just we're good.
Yeah.
So it was just the perfect amount of time.
It was, it was lovely. And to go off of a few things you said too, a lot of my amazing friends to this day are people who originally were trying to ask me out. So I'll talk to anybody about anything. I really love how I'm just every person has a unique thing that they can talk about, or shoot your shot. But I'm so I got a lot of friendships out of it, so I'm very yes, I love that. That's why I'm I'll talk to anybody usually about anything. I'm just not a fan of loud bars. I don't want to scream to try to talk to you. It's not my thing. But I also just really enjoyed too about how we were out yesterday, and some of us were drinking, some of us were not, and it was still a blast too. We were all dancing, having fun. So I'm new to going out and being I really don't want to drink. I still do occasionally, but not as much as I used to by any means. And I was completely sober yesterday and had a blast. So I really just like how you can do that.
Yeah.
You know?
No, truly.
So yeah, that's our little vent session, I guess. A little insight of our life this week.
Yes. No, that was wonderful.
No,
Coming
yeah.
home at 8:30 at night.
I love how they have a bar that was like selling cheesecake. It's like, this is amazing.
So
Alex
for those who
shirtless,
don't
just
know,
eating
and for those who
cheesecake.
do, obviously, we know the chapel, the Abbey. No one's called it chapel, it's just the Abbey. But it's
Love the
just
chapel.
the full name in there.
Yeah.
But no, the Abbey obviously serves food, and that was Christina's first time at the Abbey, and that was an experience for you. That
My
was
friend just
really-
walks up to us with cheesecake. He's shirtless in a bar, and I'm like, what? It was amazing. It
Yeah.
was great.
No.
I loved it.
I've had my cheesecake benders at the Abbey.
But yeah,
Not that I go out a lot, but just when I do, I have to make sure I always get a slice of cake before leaving the Abbey.
oh, it's amazing that they have that
so
there. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
such a good
stuff.
business idea
Yeah.
for them, you know.
All
But
right.
okay. On that note, stress, you guys.
Yeah, stress.
The opposite of what we were yesterday.
Yeah.
But so let's start off with, how about you share your personal experience, I guess, with like stress, what it means to you, your copingisms, how you act when you're stressed, stuff like that.
Yeah. Growing up, I was always someone that, was, I don't know, I always kind of coped with stress in different ways because I was an athlete my whole life. So I used that as sort of my coping mechanism for stress, for everything that I did. And up until, I retired from swimming when I was a sophomore in college, that was my lifeline. So when I no longer had that, I really had to sit down and figure out, how am I going to keep myself busy and sort of not downward spiral in my stress and sort of the things that were stressful in my life. I was always using, again, swimming as a hunch. And so, trying to find different outlets, trying to find new sports, even new groups of people, and social clubs and everything to really sort of expand upon that was my biggest takeaway from being able to kind of help alleviate a lot of that sort of ongoing stress that we have in our everyday lives.
That's very healthy.
Yeah.
Might I say very healthy.
Trying.
Because mine has not been that by any means. Now it's like super healthy in my way of managing stress. I find it fun.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Mine's like the complete opposite. Yesterday we were talking about benders. I'm like, my entire like late teens was one big bender, please.
Yeah.
Like, so I coped like growing up in a household where like we were not taught how to cope with stress. I did not have a lot of social outlets like that. Was never really big into sports. Anything that I wanted to do was kind of like not encouraged necessarily. Like I grew up in a town where that's what you do. You do like your sports, you join the clubs at school, and that's it. You don't do like the other stuff I wanted to do, which was like pageants or ice skating or horseback riding or theater and stuff like that. So I very much like was in coping mechanisms in my house was not a thing. So I would go on benders is what I did like in high school. I was out there just acting crazy a lot of times. And even into my 20s, which I'm still in my 20s, but my early 20s, my coping mechanism was like lashing out.
Yeah.
So like I would scream and get angry and think irrationally for sure. So because that's my way of relieving like the internal like suffocation I was feeling is like outburst. So yeah, I definitely did not have a healthy way of dealing with stress. Or like I realized too, when I finally started making some money in my mid-20s, a lot of my coping mechanism was like, and now it's a healthy way of doing it, but I used to like book flights and be like, screw this, bye. And just like leave. So that's how I used to do it.
Catch flights off feelings. Right?
No, it's definitely until you realize you're like, crap, you have to be with yourself wherever you go anyways. Then it was like, yeah, this doesn't help. Now my coping mechanisms are like realizing I'm stressed out and de-escalating it before I actually get to the point where I feel like I'm about to explode, talking openly and freely about my feelings with people that I trust, meditating, taking the silence and listening to myself and realizing why I am upset. Those are a few of them. I have multiple other things that I tell you about, which is like breath work, yoga, like just mindfulness in general. But yeah, those are all very healthy. Mine, not so much until now. But, and that's why we're having this conversation though, is because I feel like so many people don't know the impact that stress actually has on your life, regardless if it is like your physical body, your mind, your habits, the people you tend to hang out around. So let's kind of get into that a little bit. we actually Google, just to give you guys a little bit of a well-rounded kind of definition of what stress is. The definition from like American Psychology Association. Did you want to read that?
Sure.
Yeah, go for
ahead.
it.
So the American Psychological Association identifies stress as a normal reaction to everyday pressures, but can become unhealthy when it upsets your day-to-day functioning. Stress involves change affecting nearly every system of the body, influencing how people feel and behave. By causing mind-body changes, stress contributes directly to psychological and physiological disorder and disease and affects mental and physical health, reducing quality of life.
Yeah, that was a long definition, but so true. And I feel like it covered a lot of like key points too that we're going to be discussing.
Yeah.
And on that note too, I really want to stress to people that like stress does not always have to be a bad thing, you know?
Yeah.
Like there's a reason why it's there. I'm sure you can name a few as well as I can, where stress has actually paid off in the long run a little bit. Like most of us associate it with like your fight or flight response. Everyone's like, oh, when we were cavemen, it was there to like help us from predators. Now it thinks it's our boss and it's not serving us at all. Like that is one of the reasons, don't get me wrong. But even nowadays, like athletes, it's a great thing because it does get your endurance up. It gets your heart pumping. It starts like your blood flowing the way that it's supposed to. It also narrows like your thought process to think about in that moment, like swiftly and efficiently. So stress can be good. It is there for a reason. The problem with today, though, is we let stress linger. The technical like thing of stress is it's supposed to only happen in that moment. Stress is not supposed to live in your mind rent-free and stay with you the rest of the day, the rest of the week, the rest of the month. That's when it turns into chronic stress, which is also related to like anxiety and depression. And that's when it's not good for you.
Yep.
So on that note also, I mean, did you have anything you want to say on that really quick?
I mean, in talking about, when it's good for you and, how to manage that stress is so important, and so we look at it from a therapeutic perspective. I look at oftentimes I figure out what's worked in the past, what hasn't, where is this coming from, what kind of, we try to shy away from the word triggers now, but we're using a lot of the, like what's making you feel elevated in those moments, and how do we sort of, find ways to help cope with certain emotions when those feelings come up? Yeah. Because oftentimes those are related to often then more stressors, or it kind of builds like a foundation in a way. I treat it kind of like an 8-layered chocolate cake or cheesecake, whatever you want.
8-layer cheesecakes?
No.
That's a thing?
I don't know.
Off topic, continue. Sorry. I'm like, what?
8-layered chocolate cake. And the reason why is because it often builds sort of what I like to call, I think the stress is the cake itself, but it's multi-layered, right? It comes from a facet of different things that are going on.
Completely,
just not from one thing or two things. And so oftentimes when we look at that, we look at, okay, what are some of those baseline things that are really causing it at our core? And then what's being added on top of that? Is so important, and stuff. And so then when looking at that, okay, how are we going to be able to change that for the better? And so I think it comes back to exactly what you had talked about, which is so important. It's finding those things, finding those healthy things that kind of bring you to yourself and really sort of help you manage in the moment, and not only like present, but also in future as well. And be able to find those, healthy things to help you kind of stay motivated and, keep living, a healthy day-to-day life.
Yeah. And we're definitely going to get into everything when it comes to like healthy coping mechanisms and stuff like that. And I love how you like referenced it to multiple different layers, because that is so true though. Like one stressor or a bunch of them, like regardless, they all have kind of similar impacts on the body. And what I've realized though is when you have one stressor, a lot of times through that one stressor, you create other stressors in your life, which I'm going to kind of get into a little bit like right now in a sense. So like when it comes to the actual impact of stress on your body, we all know like the parasympathetic versus like the sympathetic nervous system, right? Parasympathetic is like your rest and digest, you're chilling, like you're in a happy place. And that's actually when like your body starts digesting things properly. Like it actually opens your mind for creative thinking because you're not narrowed in on one thing. That's how we're supposed to be most of the time. Unfortunately, nowadays, people are not like that. We're in our sympathetic nervous system state, which means like your fight or flight mode, your body, once again, like your gut's not digesting the way that it's supposed to. Your breath gets shallow. Your heart rate starts to pump really fast and your blood pressure goes up. So that's why a lot of people now, I feel like, are seeing so many health issues when it comes in relation to like high blood pressure or your gut, or they're not able to focus, is because once again, your mind's narrowing in on certain things. But now that you're living in this constant state of stress, it can't focus on anything. You're constantly on edge, like the edge of your seat, like hypervigilant, wondering what's going on. A lot of people have like inflammation due to the stress response. Like people have got issues and everyone's like, my hair's falling out, like my stomach, I can't poop all the time. Like, what's going on? And it's like because of your stress response. Like, you need to calm the F down, please, or else nothing's going to work in your life. And also in regards to that is when you are stressed, I've realized in my own personal life that, like, especially now that I'm more vigilant of when I'm stressed, what's going on around me, a lot of times, like, you create other things in your life that are going to cause stressors, right? So you act irrationally, which means you make a lot of situations worse for yourself than they actually have to be. You're moving super fast and not paying attention. You're going to break something and you're going to waste more time on that. You're also probably not eating the way that you're supposed to because you're constantly on the go, stressed out. Therefore, like, you're making bad choices. You're not taking care of yourself in general, and it's just like a spiraling effect. So that's just a little bit of the basis of kind of like what stress does to your body, as well as your life, and why it is so important to learn how to manage those symptoms so it doesn't turn into depression and anxiety, because we see it all the time. And it's a horrible thing. We're not taught this. Unfortunately, now too, everyone's like, oh no, I'm not stressed. I'm not stressed. Do you know how many times though I've seen somebody who's actually stressed, but the problem is it has became a part of their everyday to-day life. They think it's normal. They're like, I don't feel stressed because now it's just your normal state of being.
Yep.
Just because you feel that right now does not mean it's okay. It's like the trauma response and stuff, right? Like, you're used to all these traumatic events happening, so it's no big deal that it's happening again. It is.
Yep.
Like, people don't even recognize it now.
Yeah.
So.
No, truly. And I don't know, this, I kind of give the analogy to, it's kind of like coming from the perspective, like, imagine your whole life you were told you're only supposed to wash your clothes once a week. And that was it. And
Ew.
I know, right? Ew, right? Immediately, visceral reaction. Oh my God, right?
Yeah.
But now imagine if someone tells you, you don't need to do that. You can wash your clothes every day, right? Whoa. Imagine how much better you feel, how much. And the thing is like, I know this is kind of a goofy analogy, but I bring it because, again, I work with kids, right? It's a great analogy I bring oftentimes for kids because they get that visceral reaction. They're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, who would only wash their clothes?
That's what you're doing to yourself when you don't take care of yourself.
Literally. And imagine being able to be in a place where you're able to wash your clothes every day, in return, washing sort of, say, those stressors away, finding things that you're going to be able to help renew that day's struggle. Because imagine if you are in a place where you think that that's okay to only wash your clothes once a week. So you smell for six days and you're like, why is this happening to me? Why do I feel like this? And you're like, oh, wait. I can actually go back. I can change that. I can do something.
That's the trick, though, is you have to consciously make the effort to make a change in your life.
Yes.
Like, you have to acknowledge that something is wrong and make that change. I can't tell you how many people are like, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for this. I don't have time for myself. I'm like, self-care is not a luxury. It's a necessity. I don't have time to be stressed out because guess what? I waste my time when I'm stressed out. I don't work efficiently when I'm stressed out. Like, people don't realize how much time and energy they're wasting by not doing those things that they don't have time for right now.
Yeah. Truly. No, absolutely. And that's the thing. It's just like coming back to making sure that you've and again, this is why therapy and life coaching, oftentimes, even though, we say that, oh, you can find your coping mechanisms through things, this is important. But this is why I stress the importance of being able to talk to someone about this who knows what they're doing. Because when you work with a therapist or you work with a life coach or you work with someone who is trained in being able to identify these things and help someone out, I myself, even as a therapist, sometimes I don't even know that I have a problem until I talk to someone about it and they're like, are you good? And I know you and I have done
There's
this.
been so many times I've looked at you and I'm like, are you good? And you're like, I'm like, no, you're not. What's up? What's going on in your mind right now? Totally.
Right?
And doesn't it feel good though when you let it out?
Yes. And it is so important to be able to talk through those things. I know you and I had a conversation earlier, you know, completely, off the record on things. And I remember you sitting there and being like, that's not good. Like, you need to change that. And I was like, Okay. And I recognized that there were things that I definitely needed to change, but I didn't realize. I was like, oh, I'm just stressed about this. And you're like,
Because people think it's normal, but it's actually not.
it's not. And it seriously takes, I do believe it does take, if not a friend, someone in your life who is not going to have a biased opinion about it, be able to really help.
Well, because when you're in the frame, you can't see the big picture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why it is so important to be able to find someone who can give you that, what I call that, that third person sort of opinion. Someone that's going to help, sort of narrate what you are experiencing rather than someone giving their, opinion on what they see it from the perspective that you see or from the other person. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I kind of want to go a little opposite with that. And that's not saying I disagree with you at all, because I do agree with you 110%. Like, definitely talking to somebody helps so much. I was actually listening to like a podcast before coming here to film our podcast of a neuroscientist who's like, you can tell when there's just like something lifted off somebody's shoulders. Once they shared something with you, like, like you can have that feeling. He's like, that's my mission. It's like, I want people to have that feeling. I want them to have that release, because it is possible. People underestimate the like true value of human connection, and they also underestimate the value of knowing themselves. Because I will admit, though, I've been there where I feel like I was either scared or I actually didn't have anybody. Like, it's scary talking to somebody about things like this. And some people feel like they don't have a safe place where they can go and talk to people about this. I will admit there are certain times where like somebody might feel like they can't afford to talk to somebody like us, and they don't have like therapeutic people to vent to. But it's actually crazy. And I'm surprised I say this to my clients even sometimes, because I'm like, essentially I'm saying you don't need me, but like, when you take yourself out of the picture, right, out of the frame to see the bigger picture, and you just sit with yourself for a few minutes and you're like, how am I feeling? What's going on? And instead of getting like so focused on what's going on inside of you, look at it from a logical point of view. And why do you feel like this? Because the thing is like, what's stressing you out is not actually that event. It's not actually that thing that happened to you. It is your physical reaction to that event or that thing or that person. Stress is created within inside you, which means you also have the capabilities to like lessen it yourself and talk yourself down. Yeah. And that's what I think is the most valuable, is being able to be on your own and actually realize when you're stressed and talk yourself down from it. Because when you harness that tool, woof, things change for you really quick. You know how to de-escalate so fast. And it's all about just taking space, getting yourself out of your head in a way, and just like feeling what you feel and realizing why you feel that way.
Yep. I love that you just defined existential theory. So this is so important, and the thing is like that literally is part of the definition of existential theory, is looking at that wide view lens, looking at that big picture is so, so important. So thank you for like talking about that and bringing that up as well.
No, yeah. It's because like I stand by that so much. Is like, me, I'm a person where it's just like, everything you really need is in here. It is. And I know that's so hard for some people to believe. And once again, there's other tools that will get you closer to in here, or ways that you can just feel better anyways. But I have to share that, because that's been the most like definitive thing for me, is like, I can do this all by myself. And that is so empowering.
Yeah.
Instead of like, next thing we should probably get into is like, unfortunately, we do live in a world where a lot of people want a quick fix. They don't want to go to therapy, or if they go to therapy, unfortunately, sometimes like they automatically reach for the magic pills.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So let's kind of get into that. I think one of the first things that we actually learn in nursing school is about like pharmacology, right? I have to go through a pharmacology class. I couldn't get that word out, but and through there you learn about like SSRIs and all these different antidepressive medications. And what I think is just crazy, though, is one of the first things they teach you is like, if somebody's trying to get off of these medications, a lot of times after, they end up more depressed. So I'm like, that doesn't seem like a good alternative to me, but what's your opinion on that?
Yeah. No, I mean, here's the thing. It's difficult because as therapists, we're actually told not to give opinions on medication, because technically we are not licensed to prescribe.
Yeah.
What we can do is help educate.
Well, neither
people.
am I for that note, and I'm kind of happy that I'm not, to be honest with you.
Same.
But
oh my gosh. No, thank you.
Yeah.
My MDs love you. Please keep doing
Oh, no, definitely. And like, that's what I mean. There's some amazing doctors out there that will help you. But I'm now like going more into a holistic, integrative type of health, like mindset. And I'm just like, I do believe Western medicine and all these like pharmaceuticals and stuff like that, they're great in the right context. But I'm like, why is a lot of times previously, even me growing up, I have my own personal experiences with this and I'll share them with you. Like, why is that our first like go-to? I wish when I was younger, somebody could like, if somebody sat down and talked to me like, and said, I should maybe prescribe you a pill. That's what we've been taught. But have you tried doing this? Have you tried doing this? Let's de-escalate. Let's talk about things. Let's focus on your breathing. Let's realize that like I'll be honest with you, a lot of my stressors growing up was with my family. Let's realize though that a lot of times how they're acting is a reflection of them and not a reflection of you. So give yourself a break, you know, instead of being like, oh, you guys are all crazy. Like here's a pill, literally. So like, this is a bit embarrassing, but I'll share it. I remember during my like crazy teenage years when I was a lost soul going on benders or whatnot, like I definitely abused Xanax for sure. Me and a lot of my friends did. And there was a night out, my mom came to a party and found me. Like she did not want me out. She literally slammed in, like grabbed me, dragged me out.
She found you at a party?
Yeah. Oh, she would like drive around town like searching for me. And it was a different town. It wasn't even the town I lived in. I have an interesting family. Anyways. So, and the reason why I was out so much though is because I didn't like being at home. We won't get into that. But like, so she found me. And then this isn't the first time that happened. My mom brought me to the hospital to try to get me evaluated to like be admitted to a psych ward. This happened a few times, like she tried to do. Never was admitted. But, and I went in, I'll admit that one time I was on Xanax, which probably means like I was very chill, to be honest with you, because that stuff, like when abused, it knocks you out completely. Like, and you're probably one of the most calmest people there. So they definitely drug tested me, like drew my blood, did the whole 9 yards. You want to know what the doctor did? And like, once again, this is nothing against MDs. I have so many great like doctor friends and therapist friends, and they're amazing. But like, I was brought into the ED as a child pretty much.
Yeah.
And he's like, I think both of you two need to chill out, like my mom and me. They prescribed me Xanax. And I'm like, as a kid, I was like, sweet. Like, what? But that's what I mean. I'm just like,
yeah.
As also a kid too, like my therapist that my mom would bring me to, like tried prescribing me an antidepressant. And at that time too, I knew I didn't want to be on any pills. So like, I would just like plop the pill in my drawer, which I'm so grateful that I chose that. But not as many young adults, kids are as, let's say, like ballsy as I was in those moments to be like, I'm not trusting what this person's giving me. I'm not going to take it or speak out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's just a little example of how things can kind of go in that industry. And I'm not saying that's every single case, but that's why I feel like we all need to be very educated on options that are available to us outside of pharmaceuticals.
Absolutely. You know, one of the biggest things that I saw, especially in the world of kids, teens, young adults, is when we look at overprescribing often because of the sense of quick release, right? And we want to be able to have sort of the instant gratification. We're in a day and age where technology is at our fingertips. We're even now
we live in a microwave generation.
Truly,
completely,
you know, and I mean, it's in, and AI has only taken it further, right? To the point where it's, you know, you can write essays, right? You know, and stuff in the matter of minutes, you know, and stuff. And so the idea of, you know, being able to sit with yourself is getting harder and harder and harder. And I think that has also been one of the biggest things is that, you know, oftentimes, you know, in the past, I've had people come to me and they're like, I'm on, you know, 20 milligrams, 30 milligram dosage of Adderall, or, you know, and I'm like, you're 16.
Yeah.
That's a lot, you know, and it's a big dosage. You know, obviously I never, you know, as a therapist, my job is to not tell people that it's a lot. And I say that in my head.
They prescribed me at the age of 15, 30 milligram Vyvanse. And at the time I was probably like 90 pounds.
Yeah, that's,
oh my gosh. I didn't take that either really, but like, that's like, no.
I mean, you know, full disclosure for myself and for the, you know, the viewers, I was diagnosed with ADHD at 19. And when I was diagnosed, they immediately put me on 25 milligram dosage of, or 20 milligram dosage of long lasting or XR, extended release. And then after that, I told them, I said, I'd come down off this crash and I would just feel terrible. So then they added on top of it another 15 milligrams of short acting.
To just help you keep going.
Help you keep going.
Yeah.
I go, okay. And I was a crack addict for like, like
Well, to get some-
politely.
yeah.
But I would literally, I was insane for like 2 months when I was on it. And I actually came to a point where I missed my dosage for a day and I felt like I was going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I knew I needed to change. I truly became dependent on a stimulant to live.
Yeah.
And that's where I knew my problem is that you can be, when you start taking SSRIs and you start taking, stimulants and a lot of these medications to help with, brain function. Granted, we are simply talking about, attention deficit disorder or attention deficit hyper disorder, as well as, depression and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that people do need some of these things to
completely,
function.
yeah.
Absolutely. The problem that I have seen time and time again is when people are just prescribed these medications without anything. Had someone came to me and said, yes, you have ADHD, before I give you microdosed meth.
That's literally what it is. So it pops up on a drug test as methamphetamine.
It is.
And I'm like, once again, in my mind, I'm like, huh?
Yeah.
What? But we're prescribing this to like 5-year-olds, huh?
Yeah.
What's
And I think that because of that, I wish someone would have came to me and said, hey, here's some techniques that we use for people to help manage ADHD, to help with regulating emotions when you are feeling stuck or when you are downward spiraling, or or what we call ADHD paralysis too. Like when you're feeling that sense that you can't do anymore, here's some ways to help you through that.
Yeah.
I wish someone would help me with
Me too.
right? But they didn't. And they just give a medication and they call it a day. And then you're like, well, that's it. And, and so now as a therapist, I'm in a position of, quote unquote power to really say, I'm like, hey, listen, I understand if you need to take the medication. I'm not telling you not to take it. Also on top of the medication, I want you to work on some things.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to start creating a system for yourself every single day. When you wake up, let's work on making your bed. I know that's hard for a 16-year-old. I understand that. I understand that's hard for
me.
All right, it's even hard for an adult, right? God forbid. But let's start small.
The little things to make you feel better. Yeah.
I even, as a therapist going into, as behaviorist going into people's homes, I actually have helped kids write stuff on mirrors. And actually, I've created a checklist.
I do that.
Okay.
I love writing things on mirrors because you just wake up and you see it all the time.
Truly.
But dry erase marker comes right off. Great little reminders. I like write I love you on my mirrors and stuff. It's amazing.
No, it's the best.
Yeah.
And I
boost.
Yeah. And I hand a kid an expo marker and I'm like, what's the first thing you do in the day? Okay. All right. What's the second?
Yeah.
Right. And so being able to create that, it gives also a kid, teenager, or even adult, right? The sense of power to be like, oh, wait, this is what I have to do in order to accomplish my day.
Yeah.
And I think that can help sort of, even though that's such a small thing, can help cascade to such much larger notions to rather instead of just needing to wake up and using a stimulant to be able to literally breathe and function if you're going to go about creating anything productive that day.
No, completely. And I love how you said that though, because if anything in my mind, I'm always like, I am that person who believes like things don't have to be that hard, do they? And like you right there just saying like, here's a little thing to make your life easier. Like right there, that can make somebody just feel better for their entire day because like they know exactly what needs to be done. They're not going to be frazzled. They're not going to be as stressed out anymore. Like you just pretty much bypassed a pill in a way where it's just like, now I can try to like calm myself down. Things are more clear. I have more of a clean space. Like it's more therapeutic in a way. And I'm the same way. I really do wish that like me walking into like a therapist's office at the age of like 15 would talk to me about like different psychological tools to like calm myself down or even like realizations on why things in my life are happening to me. Yeah. It's just like, once again, to kind of go over what you said exactly, is like, we are so quick to prescribe. Like that's all people really do. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. People do need this, but it's like, why not try this other thing first? And even if you're on like antidepressants and stuff like that, or if you're on like other types of medications, like why not try? A lot of times these therapies that are offered, they're not going to hurt you because it's all natural things. Like a lot of times it is like either like some type of plant to like that you drink in a tea to help you calm your nervous system. It's breath work, which is literally your own breath. It's meditating and like connecting with yourself. Like none of those are going to do any harm to you.
Yeah.
What do you actually have to lose? Yes, to some people that might seem a little hippy dippy, a little crazy. I've never done that before. It's hard. You want to know what's hard is being addicted to medicine your entire life. That's what's hard. What's hard is trying to find the money to keep up with that medicine and knowing you could be spending that money on something else. That's what's hard. And yes, some of the stuff is unconventional in a way, even though it's been around for like centuries, like even before we were here. This is the most basic thing. What's new is modern medicine. But I'm like, what do you have to lose?
Mm-hmm.
You have everything to gain, but nothing to lose. Why won't you try it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's the simplest things. But I do wish that like at that age, I had somebody there telling me these things. Because I'm so ever grateful for where I am today, but it might have made my life a little easier back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the thing is people is really, you know, I used to say, what do you have to lose, right? And I think that some people may come and say, well, I'm fearful of
being judged.
Could be, right? It could be fear of judgment, fear of failure, right? There's so many things, you know, and also too, it's just, I think the thing is that so many people come from the perspective of, I have so much to do, right? I have the whole weight of the world on my shoulders. I have to, you know, provide for my family. I have to, you know, provide for myself. I have to do all these things, right? So how do you help people? And this is an honest question, is just like, how do you go in with that notion, being able to really help people sort of kind of surpass that and really help us, you know, help themselves sort of advocate for themselves, be the best version of them, but then also still be able to hold that power and be able to sort of, you know, still be able to provide in that space.
So I think a lot of it comes down to like realizations and values and the person that you want to be. Because I tell people all the time too, and I'm like, I get you got a lot going on. I'm not saying you don't. I have a lot going on too. Like we all do. This world is very, very fast and we have a lot of things we need to do, right? But your family is not getting the best version of you when you're not taking care of yourself. That's the thing you're saying right now. This is for your family. They should want you to be the happiest, healthiest, wholest version of yourself. Because guess what? When you are that person, you're going to be performing and providing so much more than you in this chaotic state. You know what I mean? It's like, what's most important to you? Yes, it's going to be a little difficult transitioning, but in the long run, it's going to pay off so much. What do you value? Do you value being a better person? Do you value, once again, like waking up and knowing that you're giving yourself and everybody around you your all? That's what you have to think about. And if you're not doing habits right now that are promoting that, like maybe it's time for a value switch. Wake up and try to be that person you want to be, not the person you are. There's a reason you're talking to me. You don't want to be that person anymore. It's time to lay that person down to rest and become the new version of yourself. So that's how I would address it.
I love that. That was so beautiful.
Thank you.
Truly.
But yeah, like I think sometimes people underestimate, like, yes, it's hard, but when you get on the other end of things and you know you did things the way you want to on your terms and not listening to necessarily like what a doctor's telling you, what everybody else is telling you need to do, and you just sit with yourself, a lot of times like that feeling and the outcome you get from that, like, you know me now, I walk in every single room and I'm literally a ball of freaking energy ready to go like conquer the day. I wasn't always like that. Clearly from my beginning story of this, like beginning of the podcast, I have not always been like bubbly and super upbeat and like ready to go. But when you are just like taking better care of yourself, you have so much more energy. And through that, having so much more energy and just being happier, like you attract better things for yourself. And that's what people need to realize, is by you putting off like becoming better for yourself because you think it's hard, you think you might get judged, like you're blocking yourself from so many blessings. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, and I think that, you know, going into that, oftentimes we talk about, you know, people will do anything but theirs.
I know.
And so I would love to kind of know your thoughts, because I do have a lot of people that end up talking to me as sort of their end game.
Yeah.
Right. I've been in that situation where you're holding that space for someone who is like, yeah, I mean, it was, I've had people admit to me, they're like, yeah, it was either you or I just I consider ending my own life.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, hey, I'm glad you're here. So
can you actually, if you don't mind, if you're able to, can you like elaborate on how you handle a situation like that?
Yeah. So each one's a little different for sure. Oftentimes I'll sort of do if it's in a clinical setting, it's a little different versus say a residential setting. With our residential settings, oftentimes we'll do risk assessments. and whatnot, and see if they're, appropriate to be in residential setting, or if we feel that maybe going back into, hospital care is important. For those in the clinical setting, oftentimes we'll, I'll probe with, some just kind of positive reflecting questions in a way, and just questions in general about sort of the person, who they are, do you have any, is this a current active thought? Right now is a big one. And then, if you do, do you have a plan of intent? How would you go about it? Those sorts of things, especially like with kids, and just teens, when they have shared that with me, then, it's, if parents are not in the picture, then, making sure that the proper, team and people are around to make sure that that is taken care of. So it's a case by case basis, but for my, my clients and people who just come to me and just say, hey, like, this is where I'm at. And I'm like, a lot of it's just validating, and you just come and you just say, hey, you're okay.
Well, it's also okay to have those feelings too, like.
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's just like, you're okay.
Yeah.
You got this. I understand it's hard. Yes, but guess what? You're here today. You woke up, you got out of bed, and you came to therapy. Whether you liked it or not, you're here. So let's discuss about it. Let's talk about it. Let's figure out what we can do to kind of help figure out what's going on,
Yeah.
Because oftentimes then it can relate to being able to really sit down and figure out what some of those root problems. And I think that people oftentimes get scared to want to share those root problems.
Oh, definitely.
And so it comes with a sense of bravery, and then it's valid, and then you validate again. You're like, what? Thanks for being here. Like, you're brave as hell for coming in here and sharing with me what you shared today.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, you're amazing for doing that. So thank you. Right. And let's keep working on that. Let's keep discussing it. Figure out what's going to help you.
Yeah.
So when you put the power in them to want to help them create the life that they want to live, even if it may not seem the most bright, just the little glimpses of encouragement and support are truly, I think, one of the best foundations that you can help.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I so wish that I remembered the statistic, because once again, there are different levels to feeling like depression and stuff like that. Yeah. But I remember hearing a statistics where like more people than you think has actually thought about like and not to put this out there, but so many people have actually thought about like the way that they would kill themselves if it came down to it. Like, you're not alone. Like, please reach out for help. You're like, so many people have these thoughts. It's not an uncommon thing. And on that note too, it's just like, when it comes to that limiting belief or that defeating feeling where like so many people go out and deal with stress and like depression and anxiety to mask all their symptoms, right? Like, I have so many people who are like, when I worked for the IV clinic, it made me so sad how like I saw so many young kids, like they would call me to go hook them up to an IV, and I'm like, what are we doing today? What are your symptoms? What do you feel? So many people these days have gut issues. And they're just like, oh, I think it's something I ate, or I don't know what's going on. I have like leaky gut, because there's all these terms, and now there's all this readily available information to you, but nobody actually knows what causes it. They just look up their symptoms and they're like, oh, I have this, like, fix me. Or a lot of kids would be like, they know magnesium calms down their nervous system. They're like, hook me up to an IV, but it's only a Band-Aid. And I'm like, why are you anxious? And it's usually like these little things that are happening to them in the world that like, it's inevitable. Things do happen to you. That's why I'm like, I feel like talking about it with, once again, like listening to yourself, talking about it with a therapist or a trained person, like, can help, because then you once again utilize little tools to calm yourself down. But unfortunately, people don't realize that a lot of these things that they're experiencing is from like how they react to their environment, which is a stress response. And I just think that's so sad. But that's why also with a lot of my clients, and like even with these kids, as I was giving them an IV, I was like talking to them and trying to like get them to look at things in a different perspective, because people don't even realize what's going on or what they're doing. And yes, people will do a lot of things besides therapy. A lot of people will be like, and I was once again this person too, they're like, oh, it's a glass or a bottle of wine, it'll help me right now. But I'm like, all these things are temporary fixes. They're all temporary. And that's what I think we really need to stress to so many people. And that's what I do. And I'm like, yeah, it helps in the moment, for sure, like relax a little bit. You do deserve it. I'm not saying you don't deserve to like lash out once in a while. We're human. Things do happen. Don't beat yourself up like over it. Have that glass of wine, have that beer when you get home from work if it makes you feel good. Like, why not? But it's when people abuse it and it becomes a problem and they are reliant on it to make them feel just okay that I'm not okay with. Because that's what people have to realize is, though, is all these things are temporary fixes. They're not long-term fixes. But when you possess the tools to deal with things that are not outside of you, they're within you, that's the permanent fix. There's always going to be things coming at you, but you need to learn and train yourself to cope with them in healthy ways more efficiently. And then what seems hard right now isn't going to be hard in the future. But if we keep only looking for these short-term fixes that everybody is so accustomed to using, I'm sorry, nothing's going to change. And right now, when I look around me, it's sad to say, I do see a lot of people stressed out, worrying about things that honestly, like we said, never even happen, or they don't have to be worrying about in the first place.
Truly. And I also, too, on top of that, I often ask people, I was like, are your stressors affecting other people? And it takes a big
I love how you said that.
It takes a big person to say yes to that. But when you do, that takes it even further. And so, you know, I think that that's something as well, like super important to be able to talk about, because the thing is that we don't recognize sometimes that our stressors have a negative or just
effect on the people around us. Yeah. You say, that's what I mean. Like, you care about your loved ones. Yeah. You being stressed out is not helping anybody. And I want you to continue. But when you said that, like, the light bulb just went off in my head. And I'm like, I had to share this is because I thought it was amazing. But like, when you're stressed out, you actually, like, through your sweat glands and your pheromones, you release like the sort of chemical people pick up on. And through, like, scientifically proven that, like, just you being around stressed people or you being stressed around other people, like, it rubs off on them.
Yeah.
How, like, women link up their periods and stuff, like, it's the same with stress. Like, I thought that was so interesting.
Yeah.
You know, like, you don't have to be doing anything but just in that stress state and other people pick up on it.
It is.
But please continue. I love that point you just made.
No, thank you. Yeah, no, I mean, it as just, I come from that question standpoint because, like I said, it takes a big person to say yes to that and a bigger person to want to change that, because now you're not changing it only for yourself. You're changing it for the people around you. And so oftentimes when people say, you know, oh, I have this, I have that going on, I said, well, how's everyone else in your life thinking about that? Has anyone else brought that to you, or is that the first time you've been told this, right? Is this the first time that you've shared this concern with me, or have you shared this with other people? You know, and then oftentimes I'll lead you down a lovely little rabbit hole of being able to
I love the rabbit hole.
Right? Of being able to figure out, you know, where that comes from. But I think that is just a huge, huge lesson.
And I feel like, too, I am all about where, like, I think you genuinely do need to do things for yourself in order to you have a long lasting effect and habit change. I do believe you have to realize the importance that it is for yourself. Because other than that, if you're doing it for, like, other people, then that leaves room for you to go back to, like, the way you were when that person leaves, if they leave or whatnot. So, like, that just leaves a little bit more room. So I do believe that, like, you do have to do it for yourself. But also, too, if it does implement a change, knowing that you are doing it for your kids and your family, like, 'cause so many people are like, I can't be selfish, even though I do believe you should be selfish in certain ways, especially when it comes to your physical and mental health. I think that it could also, like, if you lead with that and, like, remember that you want to de-stress yourself for the people around you because you don't want them to be chaotic either, like, that should be another incentive to take things into your own hands and do the work and go through that little, like, rough road for a little bit to get to smooth sailing in the end.
Truly.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So there was another point I wanted to make regarding that, but I'm, like, lost it in that little tangent I went on with family because it's just so beautiful. Oh, I just wanted to share this too because this is another realization. I was having a conversation with another nurse. I think this was like 3 months ago at the hospital. And this is another thing that hopefully resonates with people and puts things into perspective. But every single time I saw him, I was just like, you seem frazzled. Like, you seem like on edge. You're telling me you've been sick now for like 2 weeks. Like you seem stressed. You're complaining a lot. And I knew him previously, like just recently. This is not recently, but for like, it's been a trend now. And I'm like, are you always like this? Like, what's going on, man? And he's just like, oh, I'm only like this when I'm here. And I'm like, you're at work like 36, if not sometimes like an extra, how much is that? Like 42 hours a week, sometimes more. Like, so you're here a majority of your life. So it's not just when you're stressed a majority of your life. You do realize that you can't just say now it's just when I'm at work or it's when I'm here, because that's a huge part of your life. And I feel like people forget that sometimes. They're like, I'll suck it up just while I'm like at my job or at this function. But I'm like, how often are you going to these things? That is a lot of your life now. And that's a little sad. And you should probably make some changes. I feel like sometimes people don't realize how often they're actually like that. Oh, I'll put up with it. I'll put up with it. I'll put up with it. But like, when you just put up with these little moments, and these little moments are a huge part of your life, therefore you're constantly like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's more that you're stressed than when you're just chilling.
Truly.
Yeah.
It's a huge snowball effect that we talk about, you know, in the world of therapy, where we have one stressor that we ignore. So it leads to another. And then that one stressor we just sort of ignore because it's a part of our everyday life. So then we just lead it to another. And then it just kind of
completely
cascading more and more forward. And it literally, like you said, it takes someone who maybe is not attached to our life at all to sit there and say, hold up. Whoa.
Yeah.
We got
or self-reflection. Yeah.
Or self-reflection, you know, even if you can't find that person, being able to sit and realize that something's got to change.
Mm-hmm.
And how are we going to make that change? You know, and stuff. And so I think that is also like so important to be able to share how you did share that, because it's so huge.
I was talking with her though, and I'm just like, when I was talking with him, I was just like, I was dumbfounded, because I'm like, you are here a majority of the time. What do you mean you're not like this all the time then? Like, I saw it, but they didn't, you know, and I was just mind blown.
Yeah.
Because it just shows how when you are like in the picture, in the frame, you can't see the picture, you know, but yeah, that was just, I literally had a moment where I'm like, can I help you?
So I would love to go off that, because that is something that's really big that I have actually a lot of people that come to me about, and they will ask me that question. They will be the person on the outside of that frame.
Mm-hmm.
And they come to me and says, hey, blank is struggling. My mom, my dad, my sister, my friend, my coworker. They're really struggling, and that stress is rubbing off.
Mm-hmm.
How do I talk to them in a healthy way?
I love and I hate this question, because you know me too. I'm that person where it's just like, unless somebody actually wants help, unfortunately, I feel like I can once again talk until I am blue in the face, and it's not going to get through to them. The person actually has to be kind of receptive. And maybe that is through like a child or a brother or sister or a parent coming to them and saying something that can actually like resonate, and they'll listen. But in regards to like that person, I would also be like, give yourself the space and the grace to separate yourself a little bit if this person doesn't want to change, because that's not like your responsibility to hold. Because in the long run too, like if this person's already stressing you out, you trying to fix them when they don't want to be like fixed, or you trying to help when they don't want help, is just going to end up stressing you out more. That is not your burden. That is not your problem. You need to protect yourself, because it's not going to work out either way. Like people, I'm sorry, but people really can't change unless they want to, because they're the ones who have to do the work. They're the ones who have to have like that switch flipped in their brain. And in regards to that, I would just approach that person in the most like heartfelt way possible, being like, I really do care about you. Because people can feel that though too. There's a difference if you have an underlying motive, but when you genuinely just care, I feel like that really resonates with somebody, and they can tell where that intention is coming from. Yep. So I'm like, have an open conversation. And if that person unfortunately is a little bit closed off, and you see something that they don't see, bring it to light in the nicest way possible so they don't feel attacked, and kind of use the terms like, I see this, not you're doing this, because then that's putting blame on the other person. And that's not a good thing either, because the person's already probably feeling uncomfortable. You don't want to make them feel attacked or like they're doing something wrong, but like just tell them what you're observing. Because you would be surprised though how many times, like if somebody's having an open and honest conversation with you, and you care about what this person's saying, and you know what, they only have the best intention at heart, sometimes people are actually like, oh wow, you know, like I didn't realize that now, but now that you're saying it, I do, like, thank you for that. And it's like always those little flip switches that, like, especially the deeper you get to know somebody too, you realize like where certain stressors or responses are stemming from. And if you can kind of flip it so they see that too, a lot of times like you'd be surprised how many people are like, oh my gosh, you're right. You know what I mean? And then from there, they can make the conscious effort to change it or not. But like a lot of times, and what I hope is when you finally know better, you start to do better.
Absolutely.
But like people aren't going to make the change until they know. So please like share that information with them. Definitely.
You know, one thing people will come to me and ask that question, and you said it perfectly, and I'm just going to reiterate that as well, as the I over you statements are so
huge. So huge.
When you come from the perspective of support and actually making it about yourself rather than the other person, you see, I am noticing this. Can you help me explain why you're feeling stressed about this? When you come from that perspective and you come from the receiving end because you want that person to want to be able to share those things, that is really huge. Also too is asking questions about identifying stressors. They're saying, I hate my job, and it really stresses me out, and this happens and this happens. And instead of saying,
pick up on cues, you're like, wow, I'm actually stressed out because of this thing. Like, damn.
And coming from that, instead of saying, well, you should quit, just leave, right? That doesn't help, right? Say, coming from, if you were to make, or you see your statement, but it says, but you can come from a question standpoint of it and say, if you were to make a change at your job, what would you change? Can you find that job at maybe like a different place? Or is this something that you are like, and Sam are using the you statement.
Yeah.
We're gonna cut that out. It's like, but I think the thing is like, it comes from being able to put it back on the person, but coming from a genuine like concern of question.
Yeah, no.
It's so important.
Especially too when you're talking to somebody who's like chronically stressed out too. Once again, it's related with like depression and anxiety, and somebody who's in a hyperactive state, like they don't want to feel like you're blaming them for like what's going on with you too. But if you just simply say like how you're feeling, a lot of times like that really resonates. And I don't think people, and I'm happy we're having this conversation because I don't think people actually realize the stress that it can have on other people as well as like themselves. Like we talked about, to kind of like go over everything, as we talked about how it actually affects like your psychology and like your habits in life, and how it actually causes you to become more chaotic and like less efficient and just like not enjoying your life at all, which is like the biggest one for me. On top of it though, it manifests in the body as certain types of symptoms, like once again, high blood pressure, which is not good for your heart, gut issues, which makes you feel inflamed and bloated a lot of times and just not your best self. Like you feel run down and exhausted because your body's constantly on go mode. Those are like some of the symptoms on one's person from stress. But you are right. Like it does affect our families, and affects our environment, it affects our community. And I just want us all to be more calm and grounded and share that like love and just like respect a little bit more, where it's just like we can all thrive and be in a level-headed state without having to like rely on substances or like people to make us feel good. Yeah. Like you can genuinely feel good for yourself and less stress. You just have to take the steps. And that's what we're going to be talking about in our next episode, is certain types of things to de-escalate your stress, make you feel better, certain things, that practices I've personally used that are absolutely life-changing. I tell you all the time, I'm like, I feel like I'm on drugs, but I'm not on drugs. Like, because it's so great. Like when you actually realize like how, in a sense, like carefree and amazing some of these tools are, like this is better than anything anybody's prescribed me.
Yeah. Truly. And I'm as equally as excited for that episode, because I know that when we were putting it together, we really kind of got to sit there and figure out like, wait, what has worked for us? Yeah. What has not worked for us?
And everything's just so cool though, too. Yeah.
And being able to have some discussions about what those things are that do work for us. And you've taught me things that I, even as a therapist, I like look at and I'm like, I'm sorry, what? And then, but I did it and it works. And I'm like, okay, well, that's cool. Add that to the list.
Yeah.
And, I know that I've shared as well as some things, that you've been able to use and work on in your daily life as well. So it's just like being able to sit and have that conversation and find new ways to be able to help sort of de-escalate that stress is going to be so fun, but it's so, so important.
Oh no, I'm super excited for like our next episode involving like ways to de-escalate stress. Like all these things we're talking about, I'm like a little kid in a candy store, like so life-changing for me. So I am so excited to share them with people. And I really hope that like they just try them, be curious, because you never know actually what's going to help. And like I said, like to me, this stuff's amazing. Give it a shot.
Yeah.
True. But yeah, it's great. is there anything else on stress you think you might want to add for this episode, or?
No, I think that's it.
Okay.
And we're pretty good.
Yeah, I guess just stay tuned for the next one that we're going to be posting. Super excited about it. I know this one was a little bit heavy because it was all about sort of like what's the word I'm trying to think of? All about the huge impact stress has on our society today and how it's not benefiting us. But the next one's going to be all about how the good news is we have all these great tools to make us feel so much better and just like whole and stress-free and carefree and like better within ourselves. So stay tuned for the next one. Yeah, super excited for it. And on that note, thank you guys for listening. I love you all. I hope you have a great day.